Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our charitable organization division town hall. Today, we're just going to talk about some of the basics of getting back into compliance and fixing some registration issues. If anybody's ever fallen behind on a filing with a government agency, sometimes it may feel like a daunting task to catch back up, and who knows, depending on how long behind somebody is, it might be. But I'm going to try to talk about how to fix this and sometimes how it happens, and hope it never does. But if it does, there's a way out and get back into compliance. And I think at the end of the day, if you learn anything from these town halls, and just being here, is we want you to be compliant, and we want you to file your stuff on time. We don't like when anybody's late. We want you to stay in compliance with us and anybody else you need to, so that you can just focus on the mission at hand, the good work that you do for your charitable organization. So with that in mind, just a few orders of housekeeping before we get started. If everybody's on mute, but if you haven't muted your microphone, please do. And that way there's not a lot of feedback going on. Everybody can hear what's being said. The town hall today is being recorded. The recording will be posted on our website, usually online within a week or so of today, or any town hall for that matter. It's usually posted within a week of the occurrence of the town hall. By joining the town hall today, you're consenting to being on this recording. The presentation here today is for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be legal advice. Again, for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be legal advice. A couple other points just to mention: if you have questions, feel free to throw them in that chat. Get a charity officer that'll be on here trying to answer those questions as we go. She may find Stephanie's with us here today, and thanks, Steph, in advance for doing that. She may find it'd be better if we hang on and ask it at the end. Maybe there's some questions that a lot of people are asking that we address at the end of this. And so we'll do that. If you do throw a question in the chat, throw that question in. Please refrain from answering those unless you are a charity officer here with the Secretary of State's office. I think we really struggle with that too much, but on some town halls we do on other subjects. Some well-intentioned folks will throw some answers in the chat that aren't actually right. So throw the question in, but try not to answer anybody else's. And I think lastly here, if you have issues specific to your charitable organization, don't ask it here on the recording, right? Reach out to us offline. We'll have contact information we put up at the end of this town hall. Email the charity division, call the charity division, reach out offline in regards to any specific registration issue if your charity's having one, or you need help, or you have a registration question specific to your organization. This is, again, it's informational purposes, general info, not legal advice. And, you know, depending on your organization and the specific situation, your answer might differ slightly from somebody else's who might seem to be exactly the same, but not, right? So specific questions, we want to deal with them offline. Reach out to us. We answer the phones, we answer emails, and if we don't, we call you back and we email you back, usually within a day or so. So we're accessible if you want to reach out to us. So all that being said, let's get started. So and coming back into compliance, something that hopefully nobody ever has to do, but if you do, it can be done, and it can be done say relatively easy. I know I'm sitting on this side of the fence, so of course I think that, but we're going to talk about it. So just first and foremost, Secretary of State's office, we're talking about charitable solicitation registration, right, covered by the Maryland Solicitations Act, which is in the business regulation article of the annotated code of Maryland. There's also regulations in the Code of Maryland regulations, subtitle Title 1, Subtitle 2, Chapter 4, and that's kind of what governs what we do and why we do what we do. Folks that are having issues Say maybe you're incorporated in Maryland and you're not in good standing for your corporation status. That's a different agency, right? That's assessments and taxation. State Department of Assessments and Taxation is different than the Secretary of State's office. Comptroller's office, maybe you filed for sales and use tax. That's the Comptroller of Maryland, right? Different thing, not us, not what we're talking about here. We're talking about specifically solicitation registration. One of the things we always do here when we get started is talk about a few terms and definitions because I think it's important to know what we mean when we're talking about certain things. And, you know, first and foremost is, do I even have to register, right? Does my organization have to register with the Secretary of State's office? And this slide talks about why you would register. Right? The charitable organization shall register and receive a registration letter from the Secretary of State before the charitable organization does one of these three things, namely soliciting charitable contributions in Maryland. If you're located in Maryland and you solicit contributions, you're going to register. If you're soliciting anybody in Maryland, you have to register. Somebody solicits contributions on your behalf in Maryland, or you solicit contributions outside of Maryland, but you're located in Maryland. Your organization is in Maryland. So if you're based in Maryland and you solicit anywhere, even cyberspace, the internet, social media, even if your only solicitation is through the internet and social media, if you're based in Maryland, you still have to register with the Secretary of State's office according to the law. And you see in italics in bold, even if all you have is a donate button or a website or asking on social media, that's soliciting charitable contributions. And if you're based in Maryland, you're now soliciting in Maryland, even if only out in cyberspace. So these reasons would be why a charitable organization or someone soliciting charitable contributions would have to register with the Secretary of State's office. Next thing we want to talk about here real quick is, what is a charitable contribution? Sounds silly that we're talking about this, but I think it's important to cover here real quick, if nothing else, because we're going to talk about what charitable contributions do not include for the purpose of registering under the Maryland Solicitations Act. So it's a contribution made on a representation will be used for a charitable purpose, right? Give us money, attend this fundraising event. It's going to help whatever the charitable purpose is. It can include the payment, transfer, enforceable pledge of financial help, including money, credit, property, or services. So not just money, but also these other things, right? If I donate stuff, I donate canned goods, right? That stuff, if I'm out there soliciting for those contributions, I have to register whether I'm soliciting for monetary or in-kind donations, contributions. Charitable contributions do not include an unsolicited gift. Very important thing here. Most common scenario we run into this with is something like a bequest, right? Somebody passes away, leaves an organization, money or stuff, or both. Charity didn't solicit that. Somebody liked what they did and gave it to them. So an unsolicited gift, just one example of what something that it could include. We don't know what's unsolicited unless you tell us usually. And a government grant or government money. This is the other big one. Government money, government grants, they don't count towards charitable contributions for the purpose of filing with us. And organizations out there soliciting contributions from the public, but it also gets government grants or government money. We're not counting that government money towards your filing thresholds. So an important thing to know, membership dues and assessments, fines, paying for membership. There's a definition I mentioned in the regulations earlier, the Code of Maryland regulations that defines membership. So if you're only soliciting your membership, that's something a little different. You could be exempt for that reason, but the members paying only their assessments or their membership dues, that's not a contribution, right? They're paying for membership. They're getting something out of that membership, and therefore it doesn't count. Payment for property sold or services rendered, unless the property is sold or services are rendered in connection with a charitable solicitation. So we're going to run into a scenario where you're paying for something, but it still counts towards the contribution threshold on the next slide when we talk about what is a charitable solicitation. Public safety contribution as defined in the Maryland Solicitations Act. Think volunteer fire company, police organization, when they're raising money specifically to fund those types of missions and purposes. We're not going to get into public safety contributions in depth today. An authorization for a discount on the use of services, material, equipment, or facilities, including those relating to advertising and broadcast airtime. So these are things that are not contributions. The two that throw most folks for a loop when they're filing with us is the unsolicited gifts and the government money. Government money, government grants, they don't count as charitable contributions. So we're not, money you receive from those things, we're not counting towards the registration threshold. What is a charitable solicitation? Really the last big definition we're going to cover here, really any oral or written request. Regardless of whether the person that received that request gives you a contribution, you still asked. That's a solicitation, asking for that money. Solicitation, who could have ever thought charitable solicitation includes? Look at all this stuff. Fundraising, event, drive, campaign, right? We're all familiar with those. Donate, please, right? That type of thing. Whether that's mail, email, phone, social media, whatever it is. And there's some other stuff. The point where I'm going to focus on here is this last main bullet point and then the subpoints after that. Charitable solicitation includes the sale of or offer or attempt to sell an admission, advertisement, advertising space, book card, chance coupon, so on and so forth. Or other tangible item in connection with which an appeal is made for charitable contributions. The name of the charitable organization is used expressly or implicitly to induce a purchase, or a statement is made that some or all the proceeds from the sale are to be used for a charitable purpose. Notice that's an or, not an and. One of these three, not all the three. Okay, and where do we run into this? I mentioned on the prior slide where we talked about you might buy something, but it still counts towards, in the Solicitations Act, and I'll emphasize the difference between that and what people commonly think of here in a second. Maybe you attend a fundraising event. Maybe a charity has a bull roast, right? You buy a ticket to the bull roast. You bought the ticket, right? But you're going to the bull roast because it's a fundraising event for the charity. Otherwise, you'd go get your barbecue wherever you went to go get your barbecue. But you're spending money on this fundraising event because it's going to benefit the charity. That revenue from that fundraising event counts towards registration thresholds, right? Because we talked about on this prior slide, if it's done in connection with a charitable solicitation, it's a contribution. So revenue from fundraising events counts towards the registration thresholds under the Maryland Solicitations Act. That's why we count the lines we do. If you've ever looked at our instructions on our paper forms before, you know, it tells you how to calculate charitable contributions. And if you filled out an online registration with us here more recently, last couple of years, where you can do it online, we ask for certain lines from page 9 of the 990 to be entered. And those are, or if you file a 990 EZ, page 1, and same with 990 PF. Some of those lines have to deal with what is a contribution or what is revenue from a fundraising event. So when I'm talking about charitable contributions and charitable solicitation, I'm talking about them as they're defined under the Maryland Solicitations Act, which is a little different than somehow the IRS might define something, right? You fill out a 990, you know, you're looking at these lines. We pick these lines because those lines relate to the definitions in our law for what is a charitable contribution, or what is a charitable contribution because it came by way of charitable solicitation. And remember, we're just talking about it in the eyes of what the Maryland Solicitations Act defines it, not through the lens of the donor who may not know any better, or may go, well, I didn't make a donation, I bought a ticket. so I can't write it off on my taxes or something to that effect. That might be true. I can't give tax advice. I'm not an attorney or tax professional, but that might be true. They may not write that off on their taxes, and you're going to put it on your fundraising event revenue line if you're filling out a 990. But the revenue, the gross amount of revenue from those fundraising events does count towards the registration thresholds under the Maryland Solicitations Act. And this is why, right? You're paying for something for that fundraising event, right? I bought a ticket to go to this thing, and I'm getting something for buying that ticket and going to this thing. But I did that because it was in connection with some type of charitable appeal, or the name was used expressly or implicitly to induce a purchase. So, or some promise that the proceeds are going to use for some charitable purpose. So that's why that fundraising event revenue counts towards the registration thresholds under the Maryland Solicitations Act. So now that we've gotten past those definitions and why somebody might have to file with us, or why we kind of count things the way we do, there's a method to that madness on that registration form, and why we want to count those numbers from a 990 or 990 EZ for the purpose of calculating what you get in charitable contributions and what your filing requirements are every year with our office. So there's some basic things that we run into. A lot of this, few folks on here are like, oh, that kind of makes sense. It's common sense. But we got a few thousand charities that aren't current at any given point in time or another. And so we like to have this to try to have that outreach and have people thinking, okay, well, I'm not current. Why might I not be current? What can I do to solve it? So getting into that, most common registration issues that prevent somebody from maintaining compliance, if you're a new registrant, it's an incomplete application to register. And even if it's an annual registration, it's an incomplete annual registration. Folks not paying enough fees, missing supporting documentation is a big one, and maybe some outstanding late fees if some organization was due at a certain point in time and they're not current anymore, they're filing late, they might be subject to late fees, depending on various factors. And there's a whole town hall about registration requirements, the recordings on the charity page on the Secretary of State's website. If you wanted to get more into depth at what's due and when it's due and late fees and things of that nature. But there's also a term you might see on the public registry that indicates delinquent. Really just means that an organization's late and it's not in compliance and would owe a late fee, or we believe it owes a late fee, at least. Whether or not it may end up owing a late fee, it depends. But we have online registration now, and online registration takes care of a lot of this issue. If you're filing an annual registration online on our website, you'll notice that if you answer the first 3 or 4 questions, as long as you answer those first few questions up front, the form will probably change a little bit. It's a dynamic form. It's meant to capture exactly what you need based upon that initial data that you enter. If you enter that information correctly on the online form is going to kind of morph into something that you file. It's going to make sure you give us exactly what you need, nothing more, nothing less. And it's going to calculate that fee so you pay the right fee. Again, it's only as good as the data entered onto it, right? It's calculating certain things based on those answers to the questions. So if you don't enter that initial data right, you're not going to, maybe you'll pay too much, maybe you'll pay not enough. We run into that same problem. But the online form is designed to try to stop a lot of that from happening. And for the most part, it's pretty successful. The big thing we still run into is missing supporting documentation. Even on the online form, right, we're asking for certain things to be attached to the form. Oftentimes, if you're a 990 or 990 or EZ or 990 PF filer, we're asking for a copy of that 990, 990 EZ, 990 PF. Make sure it's a signed copy, right? If it's the 990, make sure page 1 is signed. And if it's not signed because you e-file it with the IRS, make sure that you attach the e-file signature authorization page. That's probably one of the number one returns we have. It's probably 2 main things that we return on online forms. It's unsigned 990s trying to get the e-file signature page or a signed page 1, or we return the online forms because folks don't provide the full list of the current board of directors on an online form. You know, you can click next for as many board members as you have. One of the nice things about the online form there is once you submit that form, next year when you come in, those board members you're not going to have to type them again. You just add new people, subtract old ones, and submit. So I think sometimes folks just don't feel like typing out 5 to 7 board members. Type them out. We need them all. Don't just give us the top 1 or 2 people. Your full list of officers, directors, trustees, key employees has to be provided on the online form. So those 2 things really, again, sign 990s, full board list. Was a problem in the paper filing world as well. And for folks that still try to file paper, it still is a problem that kind of carry over, and we can only catch that so much even in an online form. But a lot of information there on the online form. Read that as you're filling it out, and it'll tell you what you need. These are really the biggest things folks do, and I know it's mostly not on purpose. It's just you forget or you don't think it's important. But this is, you know, these are the top reasons folks end up not being in compliance. So you're not in compliance. What happens? What's going on? How do we resolve these problems? How do we register and submit forms and fees that are due? You know, the nice thing about the online filing system is it's real time. If we've processed your paperwork and you're current, it says so. And this link here is to the public registry, and you can get to it through our website as well. So you can look up any charitable organization's registration status if they're out there soliciting, and they should be current. If they're not, they probably owe us something. One other way you could do it, if you're filing online, you're using the online filing system, you're familiar with this term, One Stop. You can log into One Stop and something called, those that understand use it will understand this, kind of switch over to your entity account after you log in and check your registration status. It'll tell you if you're current or not right away. And if you see you're not current, you know we need something. And if you're not sure what you need, ask us. It's okay to ask. Ask us. We'd rather you ask and get it right than guess and get it wrong, right? And you know, we're processing this paperwork. We'd rather you reach out if you're not sure what's going on and why you're not current, so we can tell you exactly what you need to do so that you can get current, rather than guessing and testing. Then we kind of got to go back and forth a few times so we get all we need. But you can check your own status on the public registry, or you can even log into your One Stop account, find out if you're current or not. So your registration status appears on that entity dashboard, and if you click on the registration number that's on your dashboard, you can view your full registration profile on One Stop. And it'll tell you everything we have about the organization and the system there. You could even look up your old filings on your dashboard as well. But when you click on that registration number and you view your full profile, if you need to file an annual registration, that's where you'll find that green actions button to file annual registrations. You click on that green actions button and select complete renewal application, and you open up an online form and you can file. So if you're not current, you need to file some information. You can file it online. And if you owe more than 1 year, you may want to reach out to us. It's a few little tricks of the trade in the system. So we talked about why folks aren't in compliance, and there's some unregistered charities that are out of compliance. And really, you know, a lot of this is going to sound similar, right? It's failing to submit an initial registration. You know, when you're a newer charity and you're forming, you think about all the things you did when you first incorporated and applied for 501c3 status. You know, you incorporated with assessments and taxation. You got an EIN from the IRS. If you became a 501c3, you send that application to the IRS. And maybe you went and got your sales and use tax exemption from the comptroller, and maybe you register with us, maybe you didn't, but if you're soliciting contributions, you need to. And right, so there's a lot of things that happen in the early years of forming your nonprofit, and times you get all but one, right? Sometimes we're the one that somebody doesn't get. So if you're not registered, it's probably because we don't have your initial registration forms. If you can't find yourself in the system, it may be that we just don't have you registered, or maybe you sent us some paperwork and You just haven't processed it yet. But if you've sent us some paperwork, you should hear something back from us. If you sent it online, you'll hear back pretty quickly, within a couple weeks, usually at most. But if you sent it in paper, it might be a couple months before you hear back. And if it's been 2-3 months since you've sent in paper filing forms and we haven't got back to you, check your mail, check your email. If there's a valid email address, the main way we're going to get in touch with you is through email. But we've been known to mail letters every now and then, and we'll talk about that a little later here. But incomplete registrations, same as annual registrations, right? Somebody didn't file everything, paying outstanding fees. They mentioned that we're going to reach out to you primarily through email to the email address of record provided on your registration form. Make sure somebody's checking that inbox. If you give us an email address to use for the purpose of your registration, make sure you're checking that, right? And we want that compliance. And if you're missing something, we're going to reach out to you one way or another. And again, the primary way is going to be by email. Be checking that email. Make sure you haven't missed something. Check your spam folder as well. I know that sounds obvious. I'm always amazed that nobody really thinks about checking their spam folder. And I say that I'm amazed. I don't think about checking my spam folder sometimes. Right? We just kind of forget about it. Spam folder does its job, and it filters out all that mess. Well, sometimes people's emails end up in there by mistake. So be sure if you're waiting on an email from us, you're not just checking your inbox, but your spam folder as well. So what's happening when you're submitting an initial registration? You're going to get a response from the Secretary of State's office. If you file it online, it's going to come right from the online filing system itself. We're reviewing that form, and if something's not right, something's missing, something's incomplete, or we have a question, you're going to get a notification. It's going to have some standardized verbiage there, some template wording, but in that message, it's going to tell you what it is we need or what it is you need to go back into the online form and update and resubmit. So read that whole email. Especially that part that talks about what it is we need from the organization to get you current. What's missing, what's wrong, what we got a question about. So you can go in there and pick that form back up, update it to whatever it needs to say, and resubmit it. And we want it to be complete. Sometimes it's not always complete, or sometimes we have questions or we're not sure of something, so we send it back. Just get back in there and resubmit the form. If you're not getting anything from us and you've submitted that and it's been a little while, it's been several weeks, check in with us. Be proactive. Check in. Those tend to be much friendlier, right, than the scarygram that you might get by email or mail if something's missing. If you haven't heard from us in a little bit, feel free to check in. Again, we want, I think if you take anything home from this, we want you to succeed. We want you to stay current. So common reasons that an organization might fall out of compliance: failing to file annual registrations, number one reason. We talked about all the things you got to do to become a charity and then fundraise and all that stuff. And a lot of those things require an annual filing. We're one of those annual filings, right? And so maybe you get all but one. Hopefully you get us, but if you don't, you got to submit annual registrations. And one of the friendly little thought here I tell folks all the time, especially those that are out of compliance with us and maybe some other agencies too, create a filing calendar, right? Have just a calendar of all your filing deadlines for whatever it is you need to file every year. Best thought I can give you is that once you kind of get used to what you're doing, you figure it out, you file it every year, it becomes clockwork to you. But if you're not a paperwork person, maybe you're more of the creative spark rather than the technical paperwork person. But if you also are responsible for the paperwork, make sure you got something helping remind you that it's due. And registration stays incomplete and not current until all outstanding documentation is submitted. We run into scenarios pretty regularly where a charity's trying to apply for a grant and they're not current with us, and maybe that grant maker is making them get current with us before they can get the grant. We can't give you a registration letter till everything is in and everything is solved. We need to have everything. So if you owe 2 or 3 years, you got to get it all in before our website is going to say anybody's compliant, and before we can tell you you're compliant. All outstanding documentation and fees. And registration's incomplete until any outstanding registration or late fees are paid, right? Same thing with the paperwork. Folks also fail out compliance because they don't respond to anything we do send them about registration being due. One of the good things about the online filing system is it does a lot of reminding for us. If you think back to the all paper world, pre-COVID, all that other stuff, 2020 and beyond, and before, used to get registration renewal reminder letters from us in the mail. We mail them all by hand, every letter. You may or may not see that or ever get that, but we know we sent it. A lot of folding envelopes, stuff like that. Stuffing envelopes, and folding letters. And so nowadays, the online system, and this is why I say make sure the email address is good. The email address of record in that system that's getting that communication, make sure it's one somebody checks. We send a lot of reminders now. When you're online, it's electronic. That renewal reminder now comes by email to whatever you tell us to send it to, right? Whatever that email address is that you're telling us to send things to, that's where it's going. And not only you're getting the standard renewal reminder that's sent out, a month before your due date, which is really 5.5 months before your final due date, your extension date, but you get another reminder 30 days before your extension expires. Hey, due date's coming up, get it in. You get a reminder on the day your extension expires. Hey, you're due today. You might want to get that in. And then you get another one 30 days after that saying, hey, you were due 30 days ago, and if you don't have it in 30 more days, you're going to get a late fee. So you used to get one reminder, and we would hope you got it. We know we sent it, but we'd hope you got it. You get 4 of them now before you ever get a late fee. And why? Because we want you to get your stuff in on time. We want you to be current. Nobody has fun assessing late fees, and we sure as heck don't have fun collecting them. But we do, right? That's our job. We enforce the law. But we're really trying to get you current and keep you current. And that's part of one of the things the online filing system is designed to do, is notify you before due dates are coming up. So you get emails, you get 4 from our online system before you get a late fee. If you're not getting them, check that spam folder, make sure we got the right email address or record. We want you to succeed. We want you to get that stuff in before it's due. What happens after an annual registration is submitted? Basically the same thing that happens after a new one is submitted. We're looking at it. You're going to get a response from us. If you file it online, it's coming through the online filing system. If it's a paper app that we picked up, you're going to get an email first and foremost. That's the main way we communicate. Again, make sure you're giving us a good email address or record. A benefit of filing online is quicker response time. You can see the status in real time. No guessing, right? It's submitted and it's pending review. And when it's approved, you get that message automatically. We hit the approval button, you get an email right away coming your way saying you're good till whenever the next day is, the next due date is. If it's not complete and we send it back to you to update in the online system, you're getting an email saying, hey, you filed, but something's incomplete. Here's what you want to get done. And if you don't receive an email from us at all when you send something in, mentioned it before, reach out to us, check its status, dlcharity_sos@maryland.gov. I said that fast, but it'll be here at the end on that last slide as well, at the conclusion of the presentation here. So just reach out to us. If you haven't heard anything, reach out to us. If you sent us something, you haven't heard anything, definitely reach out to us. We would like to see you succeed. Notifications from the Secretary of State's office talked about what you're getting, right? The slide puts it in writing there. You're getting 4 notices before a late fee is ever assessed. 4 notices to wherever you tell us to contact you by email. That's why that email address is so important. If folks are giving us an email address that nobody's really checking, stop. Give us the one somebody's actually checking. Or check the email address you told us to use, because that's where we're sending stuff. Check that spam folder if it's not there in your inbox. If it's not in your inbox, check the spam folder. But this is what's happening here. This is what the system is doing. And again, it's all to try to drive compliance to keep you current. If you're current and you don't have to worry about filing past due stuff, then, you know, the more you're current, the longer you're current, the more you can do the good work you do and worry less about getting current. Stay current, right? Talked about late fees. I referenced that earlier, a little bit about late fees. If you're late 60 days, $25 late fees assessed. So if you're a full registrant, so you make $25,000 or more in charitable contributions a year, you're getting a $25 late fee on day number 60 that you're late. Say you're a charity, you're due May 15th, July 15th comes, $25 late fee. A good thing about the online system, it calculates it for you. One of the biggest things we used to have happen before the online filing system is we'd have people be a day late. They'd be sending us a late fee of 25 or 50 bucks. You didn't even know one, right? We don't want that if it's not due. Online system will help you with that. In the registration town hall, we talked a little bit about using the online system and some tricks for the online system. One of the things that you should pay attention to if you don't realize you're late, when you start another renewal form in the online system, at the very top of the form, it has your registration number and what our system thinks your due date is. And if that due date is old, it means our system thinks you're not current. You may think you're current, but our system doesn't think so, which means we probably don't think so as well. And if you're looking at that due date that generates at the top of the form and it's a really old due date, that either means our records aren't right and you want to reach out to us and let us know, or you're missing a little bit of stuff, maybe a year or 2 or 3 or whatever, and you owe more than just one annual registration. Let that renewal date at the top of the online form be a clue to you that you're current or you're not. And the other thing that's important about checking that renewal date is that's also how your late fee is getting calculated. If you were due on May 15th, you got a late fee starting July 15th, it went up August 1st, and it went up September 1st. Now your late fee, if you file online, would be $75. System's going to calculate that automatically and make sure you pay the right amount, not more, not less, right? But you can get a late fee for being late, and we would much prefer you not, right? And
charitable registration in
the late fee continues until the organization is current and compliant again. So just like you're not current until you submit all past due information, you're not current until that late fee is paid as well, or that late fee is resolved in one way, shape, or form, depending on what's happening. So make sure you're paying attention on that online form at the top. Look at that renewal date. If you think it's wrong and you should be current, reach out to us. And even if you know it's right and you're not current, reach out to us. Maybe there's something else you owe. Maybe you sent most of the stuff in, you're only missing like one little item and we don't need a full filing for it, right? Better to check in if you're not sure. Different things we're doing to help prevent and resolve. We talked about how we're trying to prevent registrations from falling out of compliance, but trying to be proactive, right? And we're sending those notifications about your registration coming due. You're getting those notifications by email. We may also take some proactive actions by sending emails outside of the system or letters outside of the system. Should an organization fall really behind in their registration, that takes resources, right? Because we're doing them manually one by one. The system's not automating all that for us. It automates all those automatic notices if your registration's coming due or just fell late. So we're doing certain things reactively, right? We get paperwork from you, you're getting something from us. Complete or incomplete. If you send us something, when we've processed it, you are getting a response. If you don't get that response, reach out to us. Again, online, a couple weeks usually at most. On times that are a little slower, you'll probably hear from us a lot faster than that. You might hear from us within 1 to 3 days if it's online right now, because it's a little quieter filing period at this point in time. But if you're filing on November 15th or May 15th, when a huge chunk of the charities are filing, one of those 2 days are around them, it might be a couple weeks before you hear from us, but you're going to hear from us. And it comes through a lot quicker than the paper apps we get in. But you're going to hear from us if you send us something saying you're good, we're saying you owe something because we're missing something. Notifications generally, again, coming by email, right? Through the online filing system, especially if you're current. And if you're missing something, it may come from the system or a charity officer, but either way, check in that inbox for stuff from us. We're also going to, if you call us, we're going to call you back. If you leave us a if you leave us a voicemail, we're going to call you back. If you call us and don't leave a message, we may not know. We won't call you back because we're not going to know who it is that called, right? But if you leave us a message, we're going to call you back. If you send us an email, we're going to email you back. And I mentioned the same thing with filing and returns on your filings. Sometimes they're busier than others. If you're reaching out to us in May or June or November and December, especially those 4 months of the year, it's really busy here. Like, we're getting a lot of charity filings. Think about it. Most charities, not all of them, but many of them, their fiscal year ends in December or June. And they're filing in November, December, May, or June. The vast majority of the charities are filing during those times. Maybe out in the January and July as we work out of it, maybe a little early in April or October, right? So if you're reaching out when everybody else is, it might take a little longer to get back to you. Just give us some patience. We are getting back to people as soon as we can. But be proactive and reach out to us. If you think something should have come your way and you don't see it, reach out. Don't assume. If I've learned anything in my time here, don't assume. Because, well, and we know we send emails and sometimes letters and stuff like that. We know we don't always hear back. And you may know that you mailed us something or sent an online form or emailed us and you didn't hear anything. And we both know we did whatever it is, but we both don't really know what happened. Reach out, be proactive. If you ever think you haven't heard back from us, and you should have by that point in time. Again, we want you to succeed. We want you to be compliant. How do we maintain compliance? Best way, file on time. Best way, not just file on time, but if your stuff is done early, send it in early. Just because you're due November 15th doesn't mean you need to wait till November 15th to file. If you're ready to file now, right? File when you're ready. We send those annual renewal reminders through the online filing system. If you're not getting them, check your spam. And if you're still not seeing it, make sure we got a good email address or record for you, right? So that it ensures you do get those. But file on time at the very least, but definitely if you can, you file early. Filing early is good if you're ready to file early, and if you're not, that's what that extension is there for. Submit all that documentation that's required. Know what you need to submit. Again, the online form, if you answer those first few questions correctly, it's going to walk you down the correct path. You just need to make sure you attach complete things. So if you're answering those first few questions correctly, it's going to walk you down that exact path of everything you owe, nothing more, nothing less. If you're under $25,000 a year, it's going to know to take you down the path of the exempt organization fundraising notice. If you're 25,000 and up, it's going to know to take you down the path of the annual update of registration and any other items that may be due with your filing. It's going to know that because of what you answer up front on that form. And again, I can't emphasize it enough. Be proactive, follow up, check in. If something should have been said to you by now, check in and ask. If it's in a busier period of the year, it may be that it's just been a busier period of the year and we haven't got to you yet, and that happens. But make sure you're filing on time, and if you can file early, you file a little early. Folks that are due November 15th that are filing now probably notice they're hearing back with us usually in under a week, maybe even quicker than that. So filing early is good if you can. And again, that's the extension is there. If you can't, we get it. But stay in compliance, file. Remember to file again, thoughts about filing calendars and things like that. When do I owe stuff to all these different places I have to give it to stay in compliance? Think about that and plan that out. Yeah. So who can I contact for help resolving a compliance issue? Our charity officers are ready and eager to help you. Exclamation point. We mean it. We mean it. We love to help you get and stay current. And it's easier if you're current than if you're not. And it's easier if you don't owe a late fee, because nobody likes paying a late fee, right? It's not fun for us either. We're not getting any joy out of it either. So reach out to us if you have questions. That phone number, that email address, dlcharity_sos@maryland.gov. dlcharity_sos@maryland.gov. Easiest way to get a hold of us is that. Phone number, that's the main charity line. Get to somebody. If you don't get an answer, leave a message. We'll call you back. All right? We'll get back to you if we don't get you right away. But that's your best information. That's how you resolve a problem. If you see that you're late, you don't know why, or you know why, you just want to make sure you got everything you need to try to get current quicker, reach out to us and ask. I think that ultimately, I said, if you learn nothing else from this, get a hold of us. Get a hold of us. We'd like you to file your stuff when it's due or before it's due, and the more on time you are, the better it is. We love everybody to be in compliance. That would be an ideal world, right? Everybody just files their stuff on time, never an issue. But we're people, and that's not how the world works. So we want to help you get compliant if we can. I mean, I don't mean do it for you. We can't do that, but tell you what's missing if you're not sure, and tell you, get some help if you're not sure how to use the online filing system. You're getting stuck in there. There's some really good user guides on our website as well. If you go to SOS, like Secretary of State, sos.maryland.gov. Maryland is spelled out, .gov. Click on the charity page. You'll see user guides to help you navigate the system. If you aren't sure how to navigate to find the annual registration form, click on the user guide for filing annual registrations. It'll tell you how to navigate step by step with pictures, right, to help you use it. Couple other things we run into here real quick with folks using the online filing system is whoever the designated record holder is isn't the person that's actually logging in. Our system recognizes whoever we tell it to recognize as being with that charity. So if you've been telling us for years that, info@abccharity.org is the email address of record, that might be what we have the record holder email address as. And you might need to update that in order to access your stuff. But if you've been filing online for the last few years, then you not really need to worry about that because you're already told us who the record holder is, and we're already doing that. So there are some nuances and little things in the system, particular to Maryland system versus other systems, and like any online filing system, right? So when in doubt, reach out, let us know. Something that we always put up here towards the end of our town halls, mentioned earlier, it's for informational purposes, not intended to be legal advice. I'm not an attorney, can't give you legal advice. But for legal advice or counsel in compliance with these requirements, you may want to reach out to your own private legal counsel or some of these resources, Community Law Center, Maryland Nonprofits, Maryland Nonprofit Development Center, your local bar association, where you can find a network of local attorneys that might be able to help you out. Right? These resources are super helpful. I am going to go back to these in a minute here as we wrap up, just so you can see them on the screen and write them down if you haven't written them down yet. These are very good resources, and they're not in any real particular order here of value. They're all valuable, and they are all helpful places to help you understand your role better if you're not sure or you need some assistance. Contact information, again, going back to the contact info, mention the website sos.maryland.gov. When you're at that website, click on the charities at the top of that page. If you're looking at your computer screen, you'll see charities at the top of the page. You'll see some other words like notaries and division of state documents and stuff like that. Click on the word charities. It'll take you to the charity landing page. That's where those user guides that are so helpful are found. You get them there. You get a lot of other information there. Phone number and email address again. So if you ever need to get in touch with us, this is how you do that. And just here in wrapping up, before we get into questions and things of that nature, again, intended for informational purposes only, not intended to be legal advice. recording will get posted online, usually within a week or so of the town hall. Sometimes a little quicker, every now and then a little longer, but not usually. And if you've learned anything else from this town hall, we want you to be current. If you can be current, be current. If you're not current, get current. Reach out to us if you're not sure what to do. If you're sure what to do, go ahead and take care of it. But as obvious as some of this stuff sounds, I guess we got a few thousand charities that aren't current. So this is not an unheard of thing, but it's a preventable thing, and it's something that you can solve by getting in what's needed that's past due, or if you're not sure, reaching out to us, and we'll let you know. We'll let you know what's due and how to get it to us in your particular situation. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us and taking the time to participate, listen in on this town hall. And you know where to find us should you have any charity questions. So thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.